If you've ever had a track that's almost done, but you just can't finish it, you're not alone. You got your idea, it sounds pretty good, but something just doesn't click. And the most frustrating part is you can't really put your finger on what it is. Don't worry, you're not a bad producer. You're stuck in what I call the almost there gap, the stage where your song is developed enough to feel serious, but not clear enough to finish easily. And once you're in that gap, it can be incredibly hard to get out. So to understand why that happens, we need to take a closer look at what this problem really is about. By the way, I'm Frederick, also known as Fredlight, and I've been stuck in this gap more times than I can count. Anyways, most advice out there focuses on how to start songs, finding melodies, chord progressions, cool sounds, and breaking out of the 8-bar loop. But finishing is a completely different skill. Starting is driven by inspiration. Finishing is driven by decision making without having full clarity. And that's the shift many producers never really make. Because when you get to the end of a track, you don't need more ideas. You don't need more inspiration. What you need is more clarity. This phase works completely differently from everything that came before. And to break through, you need a different mindset. But before we talk about that, let's define this phase. This point where everything sounds close, but nothing feels finished. The almost there gap is basically the last 10 to 20% of actually building the track out. It's that phase where everything is kind of there, but something still doesn't feel right. It usually shows up when the arrangement is weak or doesn't flow, or you have too many options, or sometimes when your taste is ahead of what you can execute right now. But here's the important part. This is not a motivation problem. It's not a discipline problem. It's not even a creativity problem. So what is it? It's actually very simple. It's a direction problem. Making a song without a clear goal is like trying to solve a huge puzzle where all the pieces are blank. You can put in a ton of effort, build a frame, maybe even a few isolated sections, but nothing tells you what the final picture is supposed to be. So every decision you make stays open, and that's what's stopping you from finishing. But once you define what the song actually is, it's like the image appears and now your decisions start making sense. The thing is, most unfinished tracks don't die from a lack of effort. They die from a lack of direction. But here's where it gets interesting. Even when you do have direction, you can still get stuck. And that's when the problem shifts from not knowing what you're building to not knowing how to get there. This happens to me all the time. The arrangement is laid out, but the song still doesn't flow. It's like I've mapped out the path through a maze, but every section has a locked gate in front of it. And as long as those gates remain closed, the track feels disconnected. But when those gates finally open, when the transitions click, everything changes. The separate sections stop feeling like isolated rooms and start feeling like one continuous path. And suddenly, the song starts carrying itself. This flow problem is also a part of the almost there gap. And this is the moment where many producers start making things worse. Instead of stepping back and looking at the bigger picture, they keep tweaking. They adjust sounds, rebalance the mix, add transition samples that don't really fit the track. Basically, grasping at straws, trying to push the track over the finish line. But in spite of all the effort, nothing really fixes it. So they keep on going. More tweaks, more changes, more effort. And this is where the loop begins, what I call the vain tweaking loop. Because you're trying to solve the wrong problem here. You're treating it like a polishing phase, but it's not. And this is the part many producers don't realize. Finishing a track isn't about working harder or finding more inspiration. It's about clarity. It's about being able to step back and identify what the actual problem really is. Because in the almost there gap, the issue is rarely where you think it is at first. Sometimes it's the arrangement. Sometimes it's the transitions. Sometimes it's the energy flow or the emotion or the overall direction of the track. But until you can see that clearly, you're stuck guessing. And guessing is what keeps you in the vein tweaking loop. The producers who finish more music aren't always more inspired. They're not necessarily more talented either. They just have ways to step back, see the track for what it actually is, and make the right decisions from there. In other words, they don't rely on feeling. They rely on systems. And once you understand that, you start approaching this phase very differently. If this is you, don't worry. This is normal. Everyone hits this gap. For me, every track gets stuck like this at some point. And if you made it this far, you're probably closer than you think to figuring this out. If you want to get better at finishing your music, hit subscribe. That's what this channel is about. And that moment when you're almost there but can't move forward has a very specific pattern to it. And it usually begins when something just stops clicking. Cheers.